Hey friends, today I wanted to show you how to make your own DIY growth chart ruler. These are super simple to make and you just start with a piece of wood from your hardware store. I got a 1x4x6 and it was $5 and some change, and you can use any paint you want to paint the ruler or you can even stain it. So I'm just using this Glidden house paint that I got ages ago from Walmart that I use for a lot of my signs. After I fight with it for a second, I am ready to go and paint my first coat on. I'm using the smallest brush on the planet. You could also use a roller or a bigger brush to paint your base coat too. I've also used acrylic paints to paint the back of my ruler signs, and I've also kind of stained the wood with acrylic paint. If you mix acrylic paint with just a little bit of water, you can see the wood grain through the paint, and it kind of gives it a colored stain effect, which is also really cool. After I paint the front, I'm going to go ahead and paint one of the sides. So you want to make sure that you're getting the paint on the side, and once you paint down all of the side, you want to lay it flat again and brush out the top face part of the ruler, if that makes sense, because what happens is from painting the edge, it's going to drip over to the front of the ruler and you're not going to want those drips there. You're also going to want to paint the bottom of the ruler. That's what I'm doing now, you just can't see. And the top of the ruler too. So here I am just flipping it down and smoothing out that edge where I got those drips. Time for the second coat.
What are you doing? That's a very nice paint job.
Thank you.
Like, but seriously, what are you doing?
I'm making a ruler for my friend's baby.
No, what are you doing? That's a nice mom.
Yeah.
You have painted a lot of rulers.
I have painted a lot of rulers.
Maybe you can make a ruler for this new baby.
Oh, that's a good idea. Great idea.
Yeah, but I would have to carry it on the bus.
Well, maybe I would take it to her.
Yeah, you would. Because some parents do ride buses too.
Well, she just drive to school, I think.
Actually, you could drop it off at the office.
Good idea. I know her baby's birthday.
Yeah, that's and you give one to me. When mine has a new baby. She's a grandma, actually.
Is she?
Yeah.
I don't know.
She's not a mom.
Go to bed, guys. Okay, get water and go to bed.
So I'm just doing the same thing again with the smallest paintbrush on the planet and painting the front of the ruler, and then the side that I painted the first go around is dry, so I'm just going to tip it on that side and paint the other side of the ruler, making sure that I then flip it back down and smooth out those drips.
Yeah.
But really nice.
Alright.
I love the paint.
Go back to bed.
Me too.
Yeah, both of you.
And then after the boys went back to bed, I made sure to paint the top part of the ruler too, and then I let the whole thing dry so we could paint the lines on it. So I wanted to show you one of the rulers that I already have for our kids. I put each of the line an inch apart. If you I'm going to use this ruler as my guide. If you don't, you can use a yardstick or a measuring tape just to measure out each inch so you know where to draw your lines. So next, I'm just using this square, or you can use a T-square, to draw out lines. And I make on the smaller rulers each line an inch, and then each foot mark an inch and a half. So I mark those and then kind of do it in sections. So now I'm just going to go and freehand those lines right over my pencil marks. You can also use a ruler or a straight edge to help you paint the lines straight. If you do that, make sure you're wiping the ruler off with a paper towel or a baby wipe after every time you use it, so every single line, because when you move it for the next line, it's going to have paint on the bottom and it's going to kind of smear. So here I'm showing you that each mark is an inch, and then each foot mark I made an inch and a half on this ruler because it's a smaller ruler and I need to have space to paint those numbers in. I wanted to point out on the wooden ruler, the numbers that I used are actually vinyl mailbox numbers. So if you don't feel comfortable, again, painting your numbers on, that's an option too, is to get vinyl mailbox numbers. And Dollar Tree actually has small 2-inch ones, and I make my numbers 2 inches on my small rulers. It may seem weird that I do it in sections like this, but there is a reason for it. I want to make sure that the bottom half of the ruler has time to dry by the time I get finished with the top half of the ruler. That way, right away, I can go back and put my numbers on the bottom of the ruler, and those tack marks will already be dry, and I don't have to worry about laying my stencil on top of them. These are great because you can customize them with any paint color. You can also use a paint pen or a Sharpie to just draw those lines in if you don't feel comfortable painting them. So I just cut my stencil out of cardstock with my silhouette, but you can buy number stencils anywhere, and you can either dab in the paint on top of the stencil or trace the stencil with a pencil and go and freehand them. What I like to do is take the cutouts from my stencil and lay them on my ruler so I can make sure all of the numbers are straight and spaced the way I want them before I paint them on. It's kind of hard for me to judge when I put the stencil on if it looks straight or if it's ready, I don't know. So I just like to put the number on, and then I put my stencil on top, take the number away, and then I have it ready that I can paint it and know that it will be straight. I also want to make sure that I'm folding or cutting or removing the stencil when I go to lay it back onto my ruler. You don't want any wet parts of your stencil touching the ruler because it's going to leave paint on your ruler where you don't want it. So if that 5 was touching the ruler, I would have had to cut it off, but since it's not touching the ruler, I just left it there so I could paint the 6. I like to paint over the stencil and then remove it and then paint back over a second coat. That way I can fill in any separations that I had to make in my stencil to keep the middle sections. So here I'm filling in the bottom of that 6, and then I'm just going back through with my paintbrush and painting over the rest of the 6 again. I absolutely love this project. It's a great baby shower gift, and it's great that you can customize it with the baby's room colors, and it's good to go. It's not a very difficult project, but it is a tedious project. It does take some time because you're painting and then repainting, and then it takes time to kind of make those lines. So know that if you're going to make this, give yourself some time to do it. So after everything dries, I go ahead and make a straight line on the back of my board so I can attach a sawtooth hanger to the back. If the board is bigger, like the other one that I showed you, I put 2 of these next to one another. For the smaller boards, I just put 1, and they're super easy just to hammer in the back of the board. This step is really important. You want to make sure that you write a note on the back of the board that they're going to hang it 7 inches from the floor to the bottom of the ruler, and that makes up the difference of the measurements that aren't included on the board, and it will hang and the measurements will line up the right way. Then I just write a note for my sweet friend. And we're good to go. The gift is ready. And that's it, a white and violet growth ruler for baby Violet. Thanks so much for watching, guys. As always, you can find more from us here. Make sure you give it a big thumbs up and be sure to subscribe. Let me know down in the comments what color you would make your own growth ruler, and do you think this is a project that you're going to do? Thanks, guys.